Book Club. I'm joined by my husband, John, BookTube hubby, and also Book Club VIP, Tom Brennan. And today we're going to be talking about Beloved by Toni Morrison. And just as a heads up, if you guys ever want to join us on screen to talk about the books we've selected, there are actually a bunch of other perks if you sign up to be a Patreon on my Patreon at patreon.com/Libri Labra. You could get a custom bookmark. You would join us on Goodreads, where you would be able to select books that you want us to read, and then the community would vote on them. You get to be in our exclusive Facebook book club chat, and a few other things. But like I mentioned, we are going to be talking about Beloved by Toni Morrison. And I guess we'll go ahead and do initial thoughts. Would you like to go first?
I wasn't sure what to think about this. I enjoyed the writing, but there was some things that was very confusing for me. Even listening to it the second time, it was there's some information that I probably did not put together. So,
right.
This is why I like talking about these things here, because you guys help with that.
It helps to piece things together. I relate. This is not the type of book that I would normally read. I think also I just have trouble with the subject matter of slavery for understandable reasons. But I thought, there were parts where the writing was very, very beautiful. There were some parts where I was very confused as to what she was talking about. I don't know if it was because I was listening to her delivery, and she kind of has this sultry delivery. And so sometimes I was like, is she using euphemisms for sex? I don't know. I didn't know what was happening. It was just a little strange in some areas. So I wasn't sure if she was describing sex or describing something completely different. But there was some very lyrical parts, and it was very poetic. Now, Tom, you had selected this book.
Yes.
Would you like to share your initial thoughts and also why you chose this book for us to read?
Well, Toni Morrison is the author. It's she's on my I really should have read her by now sort of situation. And in the wake of her death, it's sorry she died, but this is finally provides the impetus to say, yes, let's actually read her work. And I thought it was, like John said, it was very beautifully written, but I did not expect for it to be told from different perspectives. So that was a surprise to me. And as you go through the book, you can kind of tell who's speaking, but in that initial setup, you don't know, who's just by, it's like, oh, okay, I think that's Holly. I think that's, Setha or whatever. So
there was a part where I think it was one chapter right after the other where it was Setha, then Beloved, then Denver, or maybe Denver, then Beloved, or whatever. And it was very confusing.
Right.
I think John described it as a fever dream.
Yeah, a couple times. I'm
it's just
yes. What's going on here? I don't oh wow.
You know what? I think I mentioned that I purchased the book used, and it had notes in it that someone had written.
Yeah.
I'm so disappointed because I can't read that handwriting at all. There was notes almost on every single page, and I'm sad that I couldn't understand what they were saying.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, every single page had a bunch of notes.
Is it English?
I was like, oh, maybe I'll understand this book better. But since it was your selection, I'd love for you to lead the conversation. Are there specific things you have in mind that you wanted to discuss about the book?
Wow.
I know it's been a little while because you guys read it before me.
It reminded me of another book, and without spoiling that too. I don't know if I should say it. Because once we describe what's going on here, you can immediately jump to, the other book.
Is it a book that we've read before?
No,
or
it's not. It's a book I've read before.
Okay.
And there is also a movie, but I have not seen the movie yet. So maybe I'll put that in on the Goodreads website. So
okay.
not that this is how should I put this? This is not a book you could probably enjoy because of the subject matter, but you can appreciate how the story and how well it's written, how it's told.
Mm-hmm.
I think so. And I think the story takes place in the 1870s. Is that correct?
I'm not sure. I know it takes place in Ohio.
They are recounting. I think they're recounting events like at least, I don't know, maybe 25 years before that. So, are we in spoilers for this now?
Yeah, I think we can get into spoiler territory. So if you have not read Beloved, feel free to go read it, come back, and then join our discussion.
But let's see. I'm trying to remember because my apologies. It's been a while. The story is based. The main character is Setha,
right?
And she is in a town in Ohio, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And the story is basically how she got there and why she got there, and what the repercussions of her coming there had happened. So when we start the novel, we don't know any of this. So it's like I said, it's a matter of piecing together what happened to her on the plantation she was on Sweet Home, and then what happened after that. So
yeah, I believe the story starts with why did I not remember? Is it Paulie D?
Paul D.
Paul D. Showing up. Now, my question was, as I was reading all this, obviously, it's based in history in regards to slavery and things that happened.
Sure.
Do you know how much research went into it in regards to like actual events? Like,
I do not, unfortunately.
Okay. There's like horrific things in there, which aren't hard to believe knowing things about slavery. Just curious if there was any parts that were like specifically about actual things that happened.
If there is, it's probably composite.
Right.
Like we know this stuff happened, but that may not necessarily to these characters. We're
right.
going to have it to show the point.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to think of how to introduce this, but let's go through the characters, and because that's kind of important. There's Setha, who is the main, like I said, the main character in the novel.
Mm-hmm.
And at this point, she has Denver, who is her daughter.
Right.
Right. And Baby Suggs, who is her mother-in-law.
Mother-in-law. Right.
Right. Okay. And we also have Paul D., who was a former slave on the plantation that they used to live on. All of them used to live on that plantation. Sweet Home is what it's called.
Mm-hmm.
And the gardeners who owned the plantation and therefore owned the slaves on it. And school teacher who comes on after Mr. Gardner passes away. And I think that's about it. I think there's
teacher.
One more.
We have Beloved. And
of course Beloved, yes.
And her two sons previous.
They weren't really in the book, but
they mention Hallie as a former lover, right?
Well, that's her husband.
Okay, so that's Suggs' son.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's one of the points she makes in the book. It's like, this is what slavery means, is you can't choose who to love, you can't plan a future with them because you're bound to the plantation. So so for lack of a better word, who did you think Beloved was when they introduced that character?
Well, you had the spirit that was kind of doing things in the house when Paulie D showed up,
right?
And then the woman that came out of the water, but I assumed it was her daughter because of the fact that she knew these things, like about her earrings or whatever else it was, and she had this very eerie, creepy quality to her. I'm still not sure I can wrap my head around what happened between her and Paul D. I don't know if I understand the point of that. But
for like majority of that part of the story, I couldn't decipher whether or not this was an apparition or an actual person that actually survived and found them again. But
Right.
Later on you get that answer, and I'm like, how did all this other stuff happen then?
All right.
So that's kind of how I felt with that whole situation. Mm-hmm. Wait, what?
I mean, she kind of just sounded like a reincarnation of the baby to me, anyway.
Yeah, and that's why I thought it was the ghost of her baby grown up like to the age she would be at that, had she survived.
Right.
So.
But still somewhat with like the mentality of a child, I guess. What I kind of didn't understand, I was like, okay, this lady appeared from the water and now she was living with them. She just kind of moved in. Okay. Because unless I missed it, it didn't seem like they talked about
What's this from the water bit?
She did. Didn't she come out of the water?
Her on the stump.
Yeah, they found her on the stump. I think they said that she came from the water.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I remember that part.
Yeah.
So like I don't remember there being any discussion about, sure, you can live with us now. It's just like
it just kind of happened.
Yeah, and there was no questions asked. The only one that was like asking questions was Paul, who's like
Paul D.
Yeah,
because he saw her as a threat to his being in the house, which turned out she was.
Yeah.
So.
There was some mention, or maybe it was Paul D that had talked about her this way, but mentioned like Denver not being all there. And there was, I don't know if that was just him trying to insult her or what, but like throughout the whole book, I didn't notice anything that would lead me to believe that Denver wasn't all there.
I think the term that would have been used at the time would have been that she was slow. So, and given her lack of socialization, that's kind of not surprising.
That's kind of what I got out of it. It was more or less that she was raised in such a
like kind of an isolation,
overprotective state that she didn't have like that.
The life experience or whatever.
Right.
Okay.
And that's why she was all for Beloved's being there. Oh, I finally have a friend now.
Right.
That's why. So who can blame her? So, and it took Seth a little while to realize just who Beloved was.
Right.
So, and there's a whole chapter on that. There's a whole section on that as well. So.
Now, what was also unclear to me was what happened to her boys.
We actually just had a discussion of because a lot of this is speculation. It could be seen as if Setha was going crazy, or like seeing things, or made up her own little world in her head. So I was wondering if she had actually dealt with the boys like she did Beloved in the same manner, and she just said that they ran away, but they didn't really run away.
I was under the impression that it was the ghosts and such that made them go away.
That pushed them away? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, that makes sense to me too. That they're just tired of living with the ghost, and then they were just out.
Right. And we haven't mentioned this specifically, but the crux of the novel is that Setha has run away from
her past.
Well, Sweet Home, the plantation. And because of the party that they throw when she comes to I forget the town. Is it Cincinnati?
I think so.
Or when she comes to Cincinnati, they throw such a huge party for her, some people get jealous, and they notify the whites that she's here. And so, I forget what are they regulators? I think they're called. They come, and Setha sees them coming, and she takes all the kids to the shed, and she kills Beloved, and she almost gets like Denver. Well, the boys, she attacked them, but she didn't it wasn't lethal as far as obviously because they were out. And Denver, I don't think she touched at all, if I recall correctly. But
I don't think so.
Yeah. So, you know, I remember reading in Don Quixote, you know, is insanity a sane response to an insane world? And, you know, in her head, yeah,
Yeah,
because
it was.
who wants to go back to slavery? I mean,
Right.
So wait, what's the timeline here? So I thought she had Denver after that had happened.
Yeah, because Denver's
oh,
the
that's
fourth.
right. Yes. Yeah. Denver was,
Denver's the
I
fourth.
knew it was us. I said, there's something wrong with that, but I don't remember.
Wait a minute, the timeline
Yeah.
seems a little strange.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so she actually killed the baby,
Right.
but then she had after she was she was imprisoned for that, right?
I don't know if it
Yes.
was for that or okay.
Yeah.
And then after the fact, and after she ran away she moved further back a second time, and that's when she had Denver on the run. Because she had Denver in the woods, right?
Yeah. Yeah, because Amy Denver helped her deliver.
Oh, okay.
Well, that would have had to have been when she was escaping Sweet Home, right? Or was that? No, that was Beloved, wasn't it?
Well, she tells Denver the story over and over again about how
Right.
the white lady helped her deliver her in the woods. And then the lady's name was Amy Denver, which is why she named her daughter Denver.
Right, but that was before she got to Cincinnati, so I'm thinking that may be Beloved that she actually gave birth to. And again, it's been like a month or so since I read it.
Right.
So apologies to any listeners, but let me see if I can.
Now I'm even more confused.
So wait, so are you suggesting that she just made up the story for Denver?
Hang on. Here's the timeline. Here we are.
Nice.
Here we go. Cutting to the chase here. Sethe gives birth to her first baby girl, Beloved, in 1854. And then Bugler, Howard, this is 1855. Bugler, Howard, and Beloved leave Sweet Home to live with baby Suggs. Seth is attacked by schoolteacher's nephews.
Right.
The schoolteacher kills Sixo and Paul A. And, oh yeah, there are 4 slaves named Paul, but they all have different middle
Right.
names.
Paul A, B, C, D.
Yeah, so Sixo is killed after trying to escape. Sethe gives birth to Denver with Amy Denver. Oh, that's right, Amy Denver. Okay, so that was her. Okay. Sethe goes to baby Suggs and has 28 days of peace. And then then we had the murder. She tries to murder the children, but only her oldest girl, Beloved, dies. So yeah, so that's she took baby Denver to the prison with her, as I recall.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
holy crap.
Yeah, and I think the Gardners had something to do with her getting released, but I think she served like 8 years for the crime. So.
Okay.
Well, it was one of the things I was like, if the Gardners were so nice to her, why was she trying to run so much? But I guess watching everything else around her happening, and I mean, with like all the other guys getting killed.
Mm-hmm.
I
Well,
guess.
that was after Mr. Gardner had passed away, and that those school teachers. Remember, they were
right. He was the mean one.
Yeah, he was doing all these studies. I mean, not that not that you want slavery at all.
Right.
The book, but comparatively, what did he? Oh yeah, because it was his boys that attacked Sethe, and the one got the milk from her that was meant for Denver, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
So, and they had planned to run away anyway, but this just accelerated the process.
Right.
So.
I was trying to read the book simultaneously reading the Spark Notes because I wanted to make sure that I got
just read it right.
enough out of it. I just want to make sure I understood what I was reading. And what I thought was interesting was that they were talking about like the address of the house and the significance of it, that, Beloved was her third child and the one that was missing. And that's why the house was like 124.
Oh, I didn't pick that up. Oh, good. Yeah.
And
Bluestone Road, right?
I think so.
Oh, I didn't even get the edge.
Yeah.
I know they just refer to it as 124
124 all the time. Yeah.
And then they mentioned like all about their backs and how Paul D and Setha, they were kind of looking at each other's backs, talking about like their history and them revisiting their history and stuff like that. And they mentioned a lot about her back being like a tree. And so, I mean, it seemed like Amy was trying to help her think of it as something beautiful.
Yeah.
But Paul, I don't know what Paul expected it to be, but when he saw what it was, he was just like repulsed. And I don't know, their whole relationship was very strange to me, I thought, because it seemed like he came back because he had always pined over her, but then when he was there, he didn't really seem happy. Like
it wasn't what he expected.
Right, but then he still stayed, and he still like, I don't know, I just didn't get that.
Well, I mean, is it something about the familiarity? So that, something long past gone, and then it comes back into your life, and you're like, oh wow, what, this is great, this is a miracle, and then wait, not really. But then,
well, I mean, he sought her out, so it was more than just like her re-entering his life or something like that.
Excuse me. Wow.
But I think with them, it was a case of, we share the same experience and we have the same past, essentially.
Right.
And so that was to me, that was the connection.
The relatability?
Yeah, the relatability, yeah. So what I've been through, and, for the most part, and vice versa. And that's why they had, they told what Setha happened to Setha after she left Sweet Home, and what Paul D went through, like when he was locked up in Georgia for running away the first time. So now he escaped from that. So
did they say definitively why Hallie did not run away with her? Like, was it multiple things, or because I know Paul D had mentioned that Hallie saw what they did to her,
right,
and he was so broken by that he couldn't. But then later on, someone mentioned that he had found out what she did to Beloved. I don't know exactly what the timeline of that is.
Well, I think last I remember, Hallie was the last sighting I recall was when he was behind the butter churn in the barn,
right,
on the day that they were supposed to leave. So we're not. The implication is that he was caught, but we don't know that for sure. That's not really explained in the book.
Okay.
So
because Paul was saying he was messed up and he broke down and
right.
He saw what had happened and he couldn't.
Yeah, when school teachers' boys attacked Setha. So
I had a little bit of trouble with the names.
Okay.
Mostly because here we have like her stepmother,
baby Suggs,
and
mother-in-law.
Yeah. I mean, I think you must have too, because I think you thought that Baby Suggs was
at the beginning of the book, they're going between a dead baby ghost and the name Baby Suggs. I was like, that's not.
Yeah.
Is that the same? What's this? And I was confused for a little bit, but later on there was a little bit more clarification on who was what, and I was like, oh, Baby is her name. Okay.
Yeah, Baby Suggs.
And then I listened to the whole thing. I didn't read it, so I didn't even know that her name was Setha, not Sepha.
Oh.
So I was like,
right.
a couple times when we were talking, I was like, well, when Sepha was, and she gave me a funny look, and I just looked in the book. I was like, wait, how do you spell it? Oh, it's
Setha.
Yes.
Gotcha.
But I do still appreciate that Toni Morrison was the one that read me her book.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I had issues with the names as well.
The other thing about Holly is that he was the one who worked to get Baby Suggs free of the plantation legally at the time he bought her freedom. So from doing odd jobs and such.
Such a nice boy.
Right. Well, they were saying that he learned to count and read and stuff like that, whereas some of the other slaves didn't want to learn.
Right.
But he was like, well, if you don't know how to count, they'll cheat you, and
That's true.
a whole bunch of other stuff. And so I guess his pursuit of education helped him free his mom.
Well, that, and once you're able to do the figures, and I can't remember if it happened in this book, but I read a book about slavery a few months ago, and when they saw how much they were valued at, it's like, well, how can you possibly earn that much money to get to buy your freedom? Because the thing is, the game is totally rigged against you. So, but let's see. Any other observations?
Not about the book specifically, but I noticed that all her other books just have the almost like identical covers in regards to.
Yeah, it's like a set almost.
So is it like a series? Are they all about the same time period? Are they all related to slavery?
I don't know, to be honest, because it's the first one I've read. So, but the fact that looking on Goodreads, it's not part of like an actual series would tell me that it's probably different subjects and different things, but I don't know. I don't know that for sure.
Okay. Do you know where this book falls?
Oh, and
is it one of the first she wrote, or
in her published timeline?
Yeah, in her publishing timeline.
I do not. So.
Well, it's later. One of the things is just Toni Morrison's finest work.
Did they? Is there a movie about this?
It wouldn't surprise me if there. I don't know, but it wouldn't surprise me if there was.
Right.
There should be if there isn't.
Yes. And so that's something that's without trying to be funny. It sounds like something Oprah would take up.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So. Let me see here.
Yeah.
Let's find out.
Yeah. If only there was a way that no.
Yeah, with Oprah Winfrey is Setha.
1998.
1998.
She won the Pulitzer Prize for Beloved in '87, and she was given the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1993
with Danny Glover.
Oh wow. Is he Paul D?
So I assume. Let me see.
That would be the assumption, yes. Unless they totally changed the movie around.
Yep. I don't know if I recognize anyone else.
I'm trying to look for a bibliography here, but
did you want to watch it?
I figured we would.
Okay. I guess we'll have to watch that.
But
that's going to be interesting, I would think, unless they like significantly changed it. But with all the ghost stuff,
well,
I'm curious as to how they're going to portray all that.
One thing they could do to make it more accessible is to tell it in a linear fashion, and start with just like Seth's viewpoint,
right?
And see with the movie, I think it's easy because the actor who's speaking.
Mm-hmm.
And say, all right, So
even the description of the movie says a slave is visited by the spirit of a mysterious young woman. It doesn't even specify.
Well, I mean,
the relation.
Well, you don't want to give it away, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I'm definitely curious now. There were a couple of like characters who I don't think I picked up on their name. There was one, I don't even know who the other person having the conversation was, but they were talking about Setha, kind of like, that all her screws were loose.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just trying to figure out who was it. Ellie?
Was it Stampede?
Maybe Stamp was talking.
He was
there
talking
an
to
Ellie?
somebody else down the street, like when they were. I think it was when they confronted Paul D about not being in the house, that he was actually
Right.
staying in the church. So they it was gossip. So
Oh,
they were talking
right.
about them as just giving each other information.
What are your thoughts in regards to, because like Beloved comes and she seems somewhat childlike and innocent in the beginning. Then she has sex with Paul D. I don't know if she was just trying to take something from her mom, or like, I'm not sure I understood that whole thing. But then later it's like there's a bit of a role reversal that happens where she's kind of almost just sucking the life force out of Setha, and Setha becomes more like a child. As that was happening, I was like, well, surely Beloved is going to kill her. Like, that's what's going to happen.
Right.
But that's not what happened. So I'm just wondering what you think, like, kind of saved her from that happening.
I'm trying to remember the book now.
Yeah, I don't specifically remember very much character growth in that aspect. Like if there was something that she realized was happening and then just changed it. I don't know.
Because Denver seemed to think that was going to happen too. Like she was watching it.
Oh, because the reason why is okay. If the way I think of it as Beloved is the ghost of their past,
right?
And what happened when they were the thing. So Setha was allowing her that to eat away at her, and that's when like Baby Stars was saying, "Yeah, lay your sword and shield down." And then when she finally did, that's when I think she got free of Beloved. Plus, there was that scene like at the end too, wasn't there, where there's kind of a ruckus, and I remember Beloved being on the porch somehow.
I don't think I remember that.
Does that ring a bell?
No, not for me. Do you remember?
I'm trying to think, but I'm not sure what had happened. Like, I'm wondering if I missed the final, because I listened to it in the car, and there was a couple times I'm pretty sure I was distracted.
Right. Yeah,
so
this is a book that you have to
pay attention.
Yeah, if you miss something, if you miss something, you miss a lot.
Especially with the jumps in time and the memories and the different perspectives.
All right, let's see here.
I don't remember what actually happened.
Let's see. In the novel's climax, Denver reaches out to the black community for help. Yeah, because Setha was withering away. Some of the villagers come to the house to exorcise Beloved. At the same time, a white man comes into view. He had offered Baby Suggs the Cincinnati home. I think, that was the white people that Setha went to originally when she got to Cincinnati as a place to stay after Holly bought her freedom from the owner. He has come for Denver, who had asked him for a job. Denver had not told her mother, and not understanding, Setha attacks the white man with an ice pick, fearing he was trying to take her daughter. I knew it was some kind of drama. I couldn't remember what. The village women take her over. While Setha is confused and has a rememory of her sister, or of her master coming again, Beloved disappears. So, and then Denver becomes a working member of the community. Paul D returns to Setha and pledges his love. So that's something.
Right.
So.
Who are they referring to as the men without skin?
That's another one I have to remember.
I mentioned a few times, and I was like, what?
Quite a few times.
Would it be... All right, hang on. Well, it's a question and it's multiple choice, but one of these has to be the answer. One is white men that haunt beloved's thoughts. 2, Seth's dead ancestors. Male slaves who have lost claim over their manhood, or traumatized ex-slaves who have numbed themselves to all pain.
I had kind of assumed that maybe they were talking about white men.
It's just a white man who tried to take her back to Kentucky. Yeah. Now that again, I'm seeing. Oh yeah, that's right.
But I wasn't sure because they mentioned it more than once, and I was like, "Who exactly are they talking about?"
Right. Yeah. Now that I've seen. Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, because that's how she describes it when she first sees them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what starts the mad frenzy to get to the shed, for lack of a better word. The storage shed. So, and that, I guess, to her, that's how monstrous they looked,
Right.
to her at the time. So
Interesting.
Now, like, baby Suggs was gone the whole story, right? Like, I know they go back to her talking to people, and like they show a little bit of her perspective, but she wasn't in the house, right? From the moment Paul D had arrived, she was already gone. Like, she had passed away, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, she passed away in that house.
I mean, I know she passed away in the house, but it was before he arrived.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so they were just kind of...
Actually, yeah. According to the timeline here, Baby Suggs dies in 1865, and then Paul D comes to Seth's house 8 years later.
Oh, okay.
In 1873. So, the thing I remember about Baby Suggs, and and to a certain extent, Seth as well, how toward the end they didn't see any color, just that one or the 2 orange quilt squares or triangles in the quilt. And
I don't think I remember that.
Yeah, she was just so tired of living that this is what her existence has become reduced.
Yeah.
So, but
trying to think of what else.
Oh, one of the things I thought was convenient for Paul D in this is that, he learns from Stampede that Seth had killed Beloved, but he was already thinking about leaving before that anyway. And it's just like, well, if you want a manufactured answer, like the reason to leave, well,
Well, there it is.
That would do it for you, yeah. So,
I mean, he did seem to be genuinely upset about it because he confronted her about it.
But the way it was painted, it was like, I don't know, it just seemed disingenuous to me because, like, you were already thinking of leaving before that happened, before you found out, yeah. So,
I thought, like, the way he left was kind of interesting. Because he didn't say goodbye. He was like, "Yeah, make sure dinner's ready for me."
Yeah.
And then,
and Seth knew what that meant.
She knew, yeah. She was like, "Oh, that's so sweet. He thinks I can't handle his goodbye."
Right.
So.
Yeah, but he didn't go far. He just went to the basement of the church, and that was one of the things I liked about it was when Stampede comes up to him and says, "What are you doing in the church basement?" And before that he had asked about the community. It's like, well, did he ask any of you? They said no, like to stay with them, and they were totally willing to help. It's just and that's the same thing with Denver and the food that she was getting.
Yep.
So they were totally willing to help. It's a question of being too proud to ask for it.
Right.
So.
Now, what was it that Beloved was doing that was making him uncomfortable or restless in each of the rooms? Like, is that described at all?
I don't think so. It's just that to me he was portrayed as a traveling man. So that eventually, if you stay long enough in one place,
You just get antsy.
You get restless.
Yeah. And it's okay. Now I'll go over here. I'll say, well, that's not good anymore. Now I'll go over here. You know.
So maybe it was just played off in his head that he was believing that it was her doings, but really it was just a matter of his subconscious telling him it's time to move.
Right. Like I said, beloved becomes a convenient excuse for him almost.
Right.
Not that he takes it, but that's the way I read it. So. But then again, you know, the battle lines were drawn when he forced beloved out of the house the first time. So.
I thought it was kind of interesting the way the ghost was described in the beginning, with like the red light and the unease, how it made them feel. And I think he had said that it was like a very angry ghost, and Setha might have been like, no, it's just sad.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't think I could live with a ghost in my house.
Yeah.
I would have a lot of trouble with that, with it just doing things. I don't know. That would be hard. But I guess like part of that was like her guilt.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Just feeling she had to deal with the weight of it. Obviously.
I mean, the whole thing still could have been a metaphor for that.
Right.
And that's kind of what I really liked about this book, that there's so much in it, even with the slave slang and the different, like, there's multi-level like words used from, you know, like not very intelligent to amazingly intelligent, and it's all written in a way that every little piece of it is slightly poetic. Well,
yeah, I mean, I have to think. I don't know if she wrote poetry, but her writing is very.
I think she did.
Yeah.
It wouldn't surprise me if that were the case, but you know, like toward the end of the book, she talks about describes, I think it's beloved, the crawling already baby, and she just uses that throughout, you know, in the last part. So, you know, who would think of that? You know, so well done, you know. It's just so richly written. I that's one of the things I very much appreciated about the book. So,
I thought the dog's name was interesting.
Yes, here, boy.
I guess that kind of just happens.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah. All our outside cats have weird names, so that we can identify them, and now that's just what their names are.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of thing. Well, they're going to come when you call them anyway. But,
yeah.
That's another story. I'm trying to look for the quotes I have highlighted here on Goodreads, but I'm not finding them at the moment, because there were some really, really good ones. The one I remember, I have to paraphrase, is, you know, essentially this is the effect that slavery has on the slave and the slaver. You know, it dehumanizes both. Where she talks about the jungle, and I wish I could find it because it's really beautifully written. But I mean, that was like the crux of the novel. It's like, this is what happens. You know, she shouldn't have to deal with these ghosts, but she has to because of this institution.
Right.
So.
Did you like save them yourself?
I highlighted them on my device. So maybe it's on the Kindle thing here, but again, it was just so richly written that.
Let's see if I can find it myself. Oops. Apparently, I can't spell.
Just put BEL, and then it's your first.
No.
Not anymore.
No, I'm not playing that game with you again.
I don't get it.
First of all, if you used Goodreads as much as I do, you would know their search engine is 100% trash.
Wow.
It is. You can type out the entire thing, the entire correct title, and it will still show you completely unrelated title.
I'm saying it was in your search bar already, is what I'm saying. That's what I was trying to tell you. They just had to hit the down arrow key once.
Well, here's one. It says, freeing yourself was one thing. Claiming ownership of that freed self was another.
See, I thought there was a place that it would store mine, but I don't remember. And of course, I'm not seeing it on the thing here.
Definitions belong to the definers, not the defined. Was one that they have.
Oh, here's the. It's a fairly long quote. Oh, that was one thing I noticed that she did. Again, this is something you'd only know from actually reading the book. When she says white people is one word, not two, or black people is one word, not two. It says, white people believe that whatever the manners under every dark skin was a jungle. Swift, unnavigable waters, swinging, screaming baboons, sleeping snakes, red gums ready for their sweet white blood. In a way, he thought they were right. The more colored people, that's what it was, spent their strength trying to convince them how gentle they were, how clever and loving, how human. The more they used themselves to persuade whites of something, Negro's belief could not be questioned. The deeper and more tangled the jungle grew inside, but it wasn't the jungle blacks. But it wasn't the jungle blacks brought with them to this place from the other livable place. It was the jungle white folks planted in them, and it grew. It spread in, through, and after life. It spread until it invaded the whites who had made it. Touched them every time. It touched them every one, changed and altered them, made them bloody, silly, worse than even they wanted to be. So scared were they of the jungle they had made. The screaming baboon lived under their own white skin. The red gums were their own.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that pretty much sums up the novel for me, anyway. And that's like, yeah. And there's the thing is there's more quotes. You could just rattle them off. Look at the thing. It's just a very, very beautifully written book. So
it is. Did we want to do final thoughts, or did you want to discuss another? I'm still looking through her quotes.
Yeah, there's a lot of them, and for good reason. Well, I like to say that on the plantation, Mr. Gardner, treated them like men. They make a point of that in the book, but they're still men on a plantation.
Right.
So when school teacher comes in, he tries to disabuse them of that notion. But how should I put this? It's very tone deaf to say, oh well, they're happy here. It's like, well, no, they're just their condition may be better than the surrounding area, but they're still slaves, and that's not a good thing.
Yeah.
Nobody wants that.
I liked how the overall message just seemed to be that this is not a story you necessarily want to pass on, but you still have to acknowledge it.
Right.
Move forward.
Yeah, I took it as a cautionary tale more than anything else. It's like, don't let the past repeat itself, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's why I think the very last part of the book, she gives to the beloved for the narration. I thought that was interesting choice.
You going to say something? You sounded like you were going to say something.
I mean, I guess final thoughts.
So for me, well, I think it's firstly sad that a lot of times artists become more acknowledged and their work sells more after they've passed away.
That generally happens, yes.
Yeah, and that's just super sad. I, in my own ignorance, had not heard of Toni Morrison until after she passed away.
I think that's part of it, though, because a lot of people don't hear about them until they pass, and then the ones that do know them are making a plea for them. There's just like this awesome person passed, and we're like, who?
Right.
Okay, let me see what they did.
Yeah, I know, but like the fact that they can't benefit from their life's work at that point is just a travesty.
Yes.
But, obviously a lot of people were reaching for her book after she passed away because, like, getting it from the library is not a thing that I was able to do because there were so many people in line. But it's not a book that I would have reached for myself. So I'm kind of glad that, we read it with the book club and that I got to be introduced to her work. I did watch, I don't know, did you watch the interview that I posted on Goodreads with her?
I did. I thought it was good.
Yeah. It was very interesting. And the reason I even look for those author interviews is because a lot of times if I don't feel like I'm interested in the book, I usually am once I watch them talk about their work. And so I like seeking those out. But it's kind of hard to say, like, I enjoyed it because there's just so much pain and tragedy in the book. But it was definitely beautifully written. Mm-hmm. I would say I give it 4 stars.
I would agree with that notion. It's unfortunately for me, it's unfortunately for Toni, like I would actually give it a 5 stars for its beauty and how it's written, how it's told. Me personally, it's a 4 star because it's just not something I would have been diving into, but to know that this history exists and like you said, it is a cautionary tale. It's but I'm going to leave it as a 5-star rating because of how well it is and how well it's written, what's in it. Like the number of metaphors that are in it are astounding. That each one of them is a poem in their own. I am gonna have to. I probably will consume this a second time to get the things that I missed, and there was just so much. There was so much to consume. It was hard. It was like a really, really savory dessert that I only got about halfway in without going. Oh, okay, this is a bit much.
Right.
So.
Yeah, there's you took a lot of getting used to with the multiple characters and okay, who's this now? But there's a book like that I read that I really, really liked, called The Sound and the Fury, which does that in the first chapter. And it's like, once you have read it and then you understand the context, you can go back and say, oh, that's what they were talking, So I'm sure, again, like you said, if you read it again, oh, that's what, you can put more of it together. So, but I think the one thing one of my thoughts is, the crux of the matter being Setha and Beloved, she goes and, and kills her baby. And to her, that was a logical thing to do. And she was made that way by the society that she grew up in.
Right.
At what point is she personally responsible for it?
Right. And even though she made that specific choice to do that, to save her child,
in her mind, that's what she totally was doing.
Her life.
Yeah,
right. There was no justification for that.
But in her mind, there was, and that's what I find so interesting about it. Because you can kind of argue if you had to, like if you're a lawyer, you say, well, this, this, and this is why she did it. So, but
I was just going to say she was just very clear that she was acting on what she knew to be a certainty.
Right. As isolated as they were, in Cincinnati, Kentucky would be a hell of a lot worse. So, I can't say that I blame them. So, but yeah, I thought it was very, very true. And it's it's a book that I have to return to as well for the same reason John said. And I gave it 5 stars. So.
Would you read more of her work?
Absolutely.
Yes. I don't know how many books she's published. I am going to look through the summaries because I think I would as well.
In fact, I belong to a brick and mortar book club. I've been one since like for 20 some years at least, and I was going to consider either this or another for books for them this coming round. So it was just like, wow, this okay. I get all the, not the hype, but what why she okay? She's kind of a big deal around here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So those are our thoughts on Beloved by Toni Morrison. Again, it was very beautifully written.
Which again barely skims the surface because there's a hell of a lot more that but we only have so much time.
Right.
So, go ahead. Sorry.
Are you planning to watch the movie? Because maybe it doesn't necessarily.
Now that I know it exists, probably, but I'm going to get to it.
It doesn't have to be a live chat, but I guess we could probably just chat about it, maybe on Goodreads or something.
Yeah.
For the next book that we are reading Warm Bodies by Isaac Marion, which also has a movie. This is the movie cover for the book. I don't know how I want to describe this.
The book is still better.
A lot of people have seen the movie. The movie is described as a zombie rom-com. I feel like the book is a lot deeper than that.
I think it's a lot deeper than that.
Yes, it's much, much deeper. I feel like it's more an exploration of humanity and depression and a few other things. And so that's what we'll be reading this month. And our live show, let's see. I think, when did I say that we were going to do the live?
I don't recall.
I think I said November 30th.
Okay.
Okay, that's Thanksgiving weekend. All right.
So November 30th at 4 p.m. We'll be discussing Warm Bodies. So Tom, are you listening to it also on audiobook?
Yes, I am.
Because I know John is.
Yeah.
I like listening to them too.
I like the narrator too.
Yes. Well, and going back to Beloved for a second, I don't think we pointed out specifically that Toni Morrison does the narration.
Yeah.
Yeah, she does.
And she's spectacular, not a narrator.
Yeah. So. I appreciate when authors read their own books. I like hearing it the way they intended.
And Warm Bodies, my track record for romance is hitting game. But I think this is really, really well written. Very clever.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because I know occasionally the author complains because people are like, when are you going to write the next zombie book? And he's like, I never started with the intention of writing a zombie book. Mm-hmm. It's just kind of how it manifested. Mm-hmm. And so he's like, whatever the next thing he writes, he's like, it's not going to have anything to do with zombies, nothing to do with vampires. It's probably still going to be a little wacky because that's who I am.
Right.
But I look forward to discussing it. It actually is the first in a series.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So I've read the first book, I've read the novella afterwards, and then I read the second book, and I'm like a quarter of the way through the last book.
Wow.
Warm Bodies is a series, guys.
Yeah, Warm Bodies is a series. All right. Well, thank you for joining us if you've watched this far. Again, if you'd like to join us, you can check out some of the perks available at patreon.com/Libri Labra. And we'll see you next time. Bye.